Alright, I did not want to do this video. I didn't want to do this video because I don't want to be a source of conflict. I just like to teach. But we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are spreading misinformation and incorrect information that literally compromises our survival and well-being. The frequencies associated with 5G cellular technology does not cause coronavirus. I was going to leave this alone, and then the other day, my 70-year-old mother sent me a text message talking about a 5G coronavirus conspiracy. And I said, that's enough. Enough is enough, man. She's in a vulnerable population, and this information is literally spreading to our most vulnerable population at a detrimental time. Look, man, this video is not a shot at anybody. This is not to pick on anybody in particular. This is not to try to diminish anyone's intellect. This is about just this specific topic. This is very simple, man. It's very simple. It's very simple to understand. First of all, what does the G in 5G stand for? It stands for generation. 5G is the 5th generation of mobile networks. It's 5th generation cellular technology. The frequencies that the 5th generation of cellular technology will be using have always been in existence. The frequencies are not new. The only thing is new is the cellular technology that makes use of the frequencies. So what are the frequencies that the 5G cellular technology will be using, right? 5G uses electromagnetic radiation frequencies anywhere from 600 megahertz to 6 gigahertz, and also in the millimeter wavelength of 24 gigahertz to 86 gigahertz. So now let's just ask ourselves the simple question, right? They're saying that all of a sudden we have this new technology that's using this frequency, and this is what's causing the pandemic, as if those frequencies were not in use before. So let's just ask ourselves the simple question, what are the other applications of electromagnetic radiation frequencies in the 5G range from 600 megahertz to 6 gigahertz and from 24 gigahertz to 86 gigahertz? Well, if you're old enough to remember those old school TVs that used to have the knobs on them, right? They had 2 knobs. One said VHF and one said UHF. The UHF stands for ultra high frequency. The ultra high frequency is anywhere from 300 megahertz to 3 gigahertz. That overlaps exactly with the same frequencies that the 5G cellular technology will use. So when we were watching our Saturday morning cartoons in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s on those old school TVs, why didn't coronavirus pop up then? The 5G frequency was coming in the house while we were eating our cereal. Why didn't it pop up then? While we were watching G.I. Joe and Transformers. Come on, family. What else uses frequencies in the 5G range, right? Satellite dishes. Satellite dishes use frequencies in the K-band portion, anywhere from 12 gigahertz to 26 gigahertz. That overlaps with the 24 gigahertz to 86 gigahertz range that 5G cellular technology will use. So back in the day, again, when everybody was getting the Dish Network satellites and the DirecTV satellites put on their house, they were all over the place. While we were outside, the 5G was coming through then. Why didn't coronavirus pop off in the late 90s, early 2000s? The frequencies were coming through. What else uses the frequencies that 5G cellular technology will use? Well, if you ever travel, if you ever get on an airplane, if you ever have to go through the airport, you know that machine where they tell you to step inside and put your hands over your head? That's literally called a millimeter wave scanner. It operates on the same frequencies that 5G cellular technology will use. So now if those frequencies were causing flu-like symptoms and zapping all the breath out of your body, like the 5G conspiracy theorists are saying, then that means everybody in the airport would be gasping for air and having flu-like symptoms. The frequencies have been being used. The only thing new is the application in cellular technology. One more, last one. And this is the big one. What else emits frequencies in the same range that the 5G cellular technology will use? The sun. The sun that all us woke, conscious, melanated people love so much, Ra, emits all of the frequencies in the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. The sun emits the frequencies that 5G cellular technology will use. Now, check it. Pseudoscience is literally when you go out and look for information to prove yourself right, but you ignore the information that proves you wrong. There's so much information that disproves this idea that these frequencies cause flu-like symptoms and shortness of breath. Science, technology, engineering, and math are the keys to survival and well-being. We need it now more than ever in the middle of a pandemic. Stop playing. Stop playing with people's lives. Stop playing with people's survival and well-being. So what people don't realize is that every time a new generation of cellular technology has come out, there was a conspiracy theory associated with it. Around 10 years ago or so, when we made the jump from 3G to 4G, there was a whole host of 4G conspiracy theories, right? You would have to go back and, look for it, but you know what I'm saying? Those were in the MySpace days. There were a whole host of 4G conspiracy theories, right? And so now, 10 years later, now that we're making another jump from 4G to 5G, now there's 5G conspiracy theories. I promise you, in 10 years or so, when we make the next jump, it's going to be another set of conspiracy theories. But even with all the conspiracy theories that were out around 10 years ago, everybody jumped on the 4G, and they forgot all about the conspiracy theories. You know what I'm saying? It was around that time when I said people don't understand electromagnetic radiation. That was one of the motivating factors behind writing that book, Non-Ether Ray Engineering. In the title of that book, the ether is actually an acronym for electricity, thermodynamics, hydrodynamics, and electromagnetic radiation. Bro, I heard one brother say in China, they've been had 5G and they've been experimenting with 7G and 10G. Stop. The G stands for generation, family. How the hell do you skip from 5G to 7G to 10G? Without, at best, if they were experimenting with anything, they would be experimenting with 6G. So right away, when that person said that, I was like, okay, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. This is the same person who thinks that human beings can get infected with computer viruses. But this brother said you can't microwave information. This is literally information about microwaves. So let's deal with this idea that the 5G frequencies can somehow alter the spin of electrons. Family, it's called a millimeter wave. How big is a millimeter? You can see a millimeter with your naked eye. You cannot see an atom, an electron, or a molecule with your naked eye. A millimeter is too big to affect the spin of an electron. That's like me thinking I can wave my hand in the air and change the spin of electrons. It's that simple. It's a millimeter. What else, man? Let's deal with this graph, right? So there's a graph that they show, and they show frequencies in the 60 gigahertz range. And they say, you see this big spike right here? This means that the frequency is going to deplete 98% of the oxygen. That is not what this graph is saying. That's a misinterpretation. That's a misreading of this graph. On the x-axis, the horizontal axis, the axis that goes left to right, that's frequency. On the y-axis, the vertical axis, the axis that goes up and down, that's attenuation. That means loss, right? That means loss. And what this graph is showing you is that these frequencies, they have an attenuation. The frequency has an attenuation when it travels through oxygen. And this is just graphing the level of attenuation for each frequency. Stop. Let's just think about this for a second, because we're all familiar with frequencies. You know, in certain places in your house, you get a better signal on your phone than others. Why is that? That's because different places in your house are made of different materials, and that frequency has a harder time traveling through certain materials than others. That frequency is attenuated. It loses its strength while it travels through certain materials than others. If you go outside, you have a little bit of a stronger signal. What this is saying is that there are certain frequencies in the 5G bandwidth that are attenuated by the air. Just like visible light. The visible light frequency is attenuated on a cloudy day. The sun doesn't shine as bright. The signal is reduced. What this is saying is that frequency, that 60 gigahertz frequency, is attenuated. That frequency is reduced. Not the oxygen. The frequency is reduced when it travels through air, right? Family, it's simple. So I want to conduct an experiment. I'm willing to test your hypothesis, and I want you to test my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that coronavirus is spread by people who are infected with coronavirus. Your hypothesis is that coronavirus is spread through 5G frequencies. So what I'll do, I'll test your hypothesis, you test my hypothesis, right? So I'm going to stand 1 foot away from a machine that's emitting frequencies in the 5G range. I'll stand there 1 foot away from it for 1 minute. And what I want you to do, please don't do this. Please don't do this. I'm being facetious just to illustrate a point. But what I would say is, you stand 1 foot away from somebody who is infected with coronavirus for 1 minute while they cough and sneeze, and I want you to breathe it in. And then we'll go get tested, and we'll see who tests positive for coronavirus. The person who was being exposed to the 5G frequencies, or the person who was being exposed to the person infected with coronavirus. Come on, family. Come on, family. Stop playing, man. Scientific literacy is key to survival and well-being, man. It's key. So, family, let's keep ourselves safe. Let's continue social distancing. If you have to travel out into public for essential travel, keep your nose and mouth and eyes covered, and we'll beat these things, man. The numbers are looking like we're going in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? The numbers are looking like we're going in the right direction. Let's be safe. You know what I'm saying? This is a global pandemic. Unfortunately, people that we know are going to get sick, and unfortunately, people that we know are going to die. But we don't want to increase the numbers of sick and increase the numbers of dead by putting out misinformation. Please, I offer this video out of love only. I promise you, there's no ill intent or malice in it. Okay? That's all I want to say. Peace.